Hello and welcome to the 5th week of my project Lute Fable. I'm starting here in my test build for my very first level of the game. I've got a nice block out, I've got some new models in. Our guy doesn't have a model unfortunately yet, but we're getting there. And I'm going to show you this sort of trial build that I've put together just to show off a few of the little things that I've been working on. So this is a room in which you can enter and not escape. The door is now shut behind you, meaning that you have to kill all of the enemies in a room. And I'll get over how that works later. But the other way you can escape is by bombing the door. So if I place this bomb here, after 5 seconds the bomb will blow up. This is not new, you've seen this before, and then you can access all of the other doors. So this enables you to escape a room. And then we have another room here in which there's a murderous teddy bear. And so if we just kill this bear with our power, then we can then, when he dies, we can then escape the room. So the idea there is to force you into combat. Make sure you're prepared. Don't go in a room if you can't handle it. Also, all of the objects now spawn at Y level 200, which worked great in my test map, but does not work in level 0. So we'll have to edit that to spawn at the same level as the model that died. So I can show you how that combat room works. It's relatively simple. So when a player enters, this is when it all kicks off. We check whether or not the player enters, because this is just a beginner overlap on any actor, and then what we do is we count how many enemies are in a room. So in the example you saw with our friendly Teddy Boris there was one enemy in a room. So just increments enemy count until it says the appropriate number. And then at the end of that it does a door lock toggle, and this is just a custom event up here, and simply all that does is get all the actors of class, in this case door, and then it sets a bool variable locked. And we can actually see what this does within the door itself. It's in elements, which is supposed to be like map elements, door. So it's simply, if it's locked, then it doesn't allow this branch to pass through, and it can't start doing all of the nice stuff that makes it look like the door is swinging open, essentially. All looks very complex, but unfortunately this is what you have to do with timers in Unreal. So we just have this custom event, and we can set whether or not it's locked. All the doors get set locked and unlocked, very simply. And when you enter a room, it only really matters the doors that are adjacent to the room are locked or unlocked. So we can unlock and lock the other doors basically at our whim. It's actually faster and less expensive to lock all the doors in a level than it is to search through all of the overlapping actors in a specific volume for doors and then lock only those doors. So I've done it this way just to save some time, even though it seems like locking, I don't know, 10, 20 doors would be bad. So then we have our sort of escape variable set. We have to either get the enemy count to 0 or toggle the door in some other way. So when an object leaves the volume, if it's an enemy, we de-increment the enemy count, and then when the enemy count is less than or equal to 0, we unlock the doors. So if you kill Boris, you get the doors unlocked. And then, if a player leaves, we unlock the doors. So this is simply so that if there's a door that's been exploded and you go through there, the doors will all be unlocked when you enter like the next room. Because otherwise the doors would explode and you would leave, and then you wouldn't be able to get into the next room because all the doors would be locked. So then we have the caster top-down character, and we just make sure the player isn't dead, because end overlap also counts when a character is destroyed. So we have to make sure the character isn't dead, and then if the character is not dead rather, we kill all the enemies. Because what we want to do is when you explode a door, you end the encounter. So we'll kill all the enemies when the door explodes. But if you were to stay and fight them, then you would get the loot. So there's a little bit of risk and reward there. And I can mess around with some of these a little bit later in the polish phase, but for now that's how the mechanics are going to work. And then finally we have, if a door leaves the volume, then we print a string that says lol, and then we destroy the volume itself. So when a door is exploded, what we want to do is we want to get rid of the volume, because the volume is not doing us any favors. Once the door is done, the combat's ended, everything's going to go home, so we'll just get rid of that. And that is essentially how that works. So we have a few other things I've been working on. Most of what I've been doing is sort of behind the scenes coding, which is not particularly interesting to show you, even though this has been one of my more productive weeks. So we can actually find the, do we have the top down character in here? Top, wait, what am I doing? Enter the test map. No. So as you can see, you've already seen the doors have been applied. So I've got the key doors here. We can actually see how they function. So the door just opens and closes, and now it's solid on the moment that it's fully opened, but while it's opening and closing, it's non-solid. So this means if you're approaching from this side, you don't clip into the door. Actually, let me move that a little bit further forward so we can demonstrate that effectively, and I'll grab the keys for later. So if you move in from this side, getting clipped by the door is kind of annoying because it pushes you back a little bit, and then there's a point about here where you get pushed out and then you're walking back in and it sort of spams you back and forth. Very annoying. But now that's all fixed and the doors sort of feel quite smooth and it's sort of shut, not quite, just to make it feel a little bit more realistic. Then we have these doors which function fairly basically because they've not been implemented in the game, but they just open and they remain open. So I'll have to just copy over what I've got for this door onto these. It shouldn't take too long. The other thing I've been doing is adding these small stone platforms here, so when you stand on them they sort of smoke and start to crumble a little bit, and then after a certain amount of time they will be destroyed. So the idea is perhaps there's a big loot chest or something, or like a pile of loot or a rare enemy across one side of a bridge made of these stones, and you want to sort of run back and kill him and then run back across. But you know, we can mess with the timings and make that a little bit more dynamic. Or maybe we have a dungeon set up in such a way that there are multiple paths, but you can only take one, because as soon as you go across, the platforms fall from underneath you, so you can't go back. So that could also be interesting. So pick your own path style game, which of course may make levels impossible if players don't, you know, commit to the paths. They could go back, they could fall. So I'd have to keep that in mind. And then the only other thing really has been just tidying up an absolute ton of this code. So I don't know if you knew what the project looked before, but this is much, much better. This is just a main player character. So when I first got into coding, I was told by someone that was much better than me, if you're doing something more than once, you're probably doing it wrong. Because ideally in coding, you're making things run as efficiently as possible. So previously, I had these macros were all expanded, so all of this code was just visible in the event graph. And I've been compacting it all into macros. So now I have these 12 macros here that all contain just a jumble, a complete mess. And I've also improved the efficiency that they work, so they all work faster, as well as working in general cases now, which is excellent. And not only have I color coordinated things and added macros and increased the efficiency of things, but I've also improved the firing mechanism. So I think previously noted there was double projectiles firing occasionally, and that should not be the case. So that's all been sorted. And the scroll in and out is much more consistent. So previously, let's see, does this Xbox controller work? No, it does not. Previously, the scrolling on the Xbox was much faster than the mouse wheel, but now they feel much more consistent. So you can scroll in and out a lot more consistently. And then, of course, this has all been done using, well, in this case, custom commands, but it's still a sort of general case applied to a broader set. So I think this has been called 4 times each on both of these. Oof. So this is the combination of my work thus far. There's a lot of other little things that I've been trying to improve. I spent a long time trying to get some Paragon assets to work, but unfortunately, because I have to submit in a lower version of Unreal, I won't be able to use a lot of the Paragon assets. I'm very fortunate that Boris works, thank gosh, but I'll need to find a model that fits our player character. Of course, I've been working on the particle effects, which you can't really see here, but you can see when I stand on these. I'm completely new to particle effects, so for the limited time I spent on these, I'm fairly happy, but I will continue to improve them. I think I need to get a better rock asset. I'm not particularly happy with the one there. It was just in the Paragon bundle that I had. Oh yeah, I can talk briefly about the construction of the levels that I will be completing as well. So if I go to maps and level 0 and don't save. So this is roughly how the levels will be constructed in the final game. So the floor tiles are made up of these tiles of various sizes, so the textures fit nicely onto them. So we have some large ones and some small ones to give the room an interesting shape. Although ideally all of the rooms would fit within a box so that these volumes work correctly. And then we have the doors, which are the exact width of the paths. And then I have some dungeon wall assets that I have yet to import. So what I'll do is I'll line the walls with these. And so the south walls will always be clear of these walls here so that you can see your player, because if the camera was rotated 180 degrees, you can imagine it would be quite difficult to see your player over this large white block. But as the camera faces this way, we want to eliminate these walls so you can see more clearly. And then we'll add invisible barriers in these spaces so that the character can't walk off. And this white plane here, this large white plane of milk, is actually entirely necessary to be there, because the way the shooting works, we get the location of the click. So the click is happening on this tile here, so that's how we know that the click happens. So I've made the milk plane completely invisible, but I am actually clicking it here, and this is what is allowing me to shoot, fortunately. Although the shooting doesn't take Z data, which is height, it does, well, to be shooting you need to click something at all with Z data, but then we ignore it and input our own Z data because we want the velocity of Z to be 0 so that the projectile flies purely horizontally, not vertically whatsoever. But at the moment you can just walk off into the void and have a good time there, and then never get back up because our character can't jump by height. So that is pretty much all I've been working on thus far. I think by the end of next week I should get a sort of fully playable build, so that'll be very fun to start working on. I'll start trying to get some of these models as well. I'm starting to bleed in some of the polish aspects into my general functioning, because almost everything sort of functions to a basic degree. So I'll start polishing, making things work a little nicer, making some stuff look nice. I think if you work on those in parallel, the project seems to sort of fit together a lot nicer. It runs a lot smoother, in a sense that you can plan for polish, and you can plan for design, you can plan for programming, and you can make time for all of these as and when is required. So that's all for me this week, but stay tuned next week when hopefully I'll have a playable game and a playable downloadable version. I'm not going to make any promises, but I'll try my best.